Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources, and your host for today's show. We're going to be talking about board assessments, a boardroom focus for 2017. And joining me is someone that has a lot of interest and passion on this topic. Please welcome Angela Brock-Kyle, who's a board member with Infinity Proper and Casualty Corp., and also sits on the board of the Guggenheim Ridex Fund. So Angela, welcome to the show.
Thanks, TK. I'm pleased to be here.
So you have good experience with boards. You sat on, you chaired the audit committee, you've been on the NomGov committee, so you have that experience.
That's right.
A big part of your experience, though, is you spent over, 25 years at TIAA, or the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association, known as TIAA CREF for us older guys.
That's right.
And currently you also have founded and serve as the CEO of Boards, which is a governance and risk advisory firm. So
that's right.
We've established this pretty extensive background on boards and governance, and investors. So it was interesting, when I called you, I'll share this with the audience, when I called you and we started to talk about topics that were relevant, you jumped, and I mean jumped at the chance to talk about board assessments or evaluation. Tell me why that was such an important topic to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, TK. For me, it's a combination of things. Certainly I have the expertise that you mentioned, but I believe in the number one board value, which is integrity, and board assessment is a big area of opportunity there. The opportunity comes from the underutilization of board assessments and the potential range of impact that isn't being fulfilled, whether it's enhancing director performance, enhancing board performance, improving prospects for the company, or improving the entire governance landscape. The board assessments are not as robust as they could be. They're not frequently used to drive changes, which can be very positive for the company. So that's a big area of opportunity. I mentioned integrity earlier, and it's a director's duty to enhance the long-term value of the enterprise. So the enterprise was there before we became directors. It's going to be there after we leave the board. We want to leave it in the best stead possible. Board assessments, enable the board to look in the mirror, to look around the table, and to look in the room from a variety of perspectives. And because this tool is solely within the control of the board, it's very easy for them to utilize and to find a way to add value from the output. So my passion, if you're not hearing it, comes from the value alignment with what directors do and the opportunity to use this tool to its utmost.
When we finished our investor board performance series, where we had all the investors and the proxy advisors and the activists into our session, it was interesting that the number one issue, with all the issues that they could worry about, to a group was board composition, okay? And in the perfect world, they aren't worrying about age requirements, they aren't worrying about tenure, they're worried about the value and the quality of the board evaluation and the refreshment of boards.
Yes.
Okay. So knowing that that's so add that with your passion. This is a very, very relevant topic. Okay. So the best thing that you and I can do is talk about what are the keys for boards to get the assessments, or what some people call the evaluation of a board, right?
Great question. From my perspective, there are two fundamental elements of getting it right, because one size doesn't fit all for boards. Companies are all very different, but there are two critical baselines. One is to have an independent assessor, because that enables you to avoid conflicts, to avoid biases in interpreting the data, to preserve related parties as potential resources, and I'll mention that in more detail later. And it also enables that assessor to speak both for and to the board with the information that they provide. The second key point is for the board to commit fully to this process. It is a journey, and it should involve a robust and comprehensive assessment, and sometimes you need to do that 2 or 3 times in order to launch into a more sustainable place. The assessment is a flexible tool. It can be broadened, deepened. It can focus on current issues. It produces actionable tactics, some of which are pretty simple to change, and others are more strategic and help the company stretch and grow. So beyond those two fundamentals, everything else is flexible, but those two are non-negotiable.
A company that doesn't occasionally bring in an outside person to do their evaluation is probably missing a very critical issue and one of your main points.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Let me talk a little bit more about some of the other facets of board evaluation and how those can be combined or work towards producing the best assessment possible. And to move to that topic, I'm going to talk about the Olympics for just a second. So when we look at the Olympics, there are basically 4 categories: no medal, bronze, silver, or gold. From my perspective, as I said before, fundamentally, if you want to medal, you have to have an independent assessor and you have to be committed to a robust process. In the bronze category, which is where I think most companies are today, they're utilizing a survey. They may use an interested party as well, but it's basically a check-the-box exercise. They're not really challenging people, gaining useful, actionable information that can help the company to grow. So that's the bronze category, and I would encourage people to move out of that category. Step up to silver, which combines what's being done in the bronze category with interpersonal communications. That can be on the phone, which isn't preferred, or in person, perhaps after a board meeting, having a series of discussions with people. And again, that would be led by the independent assessor. No attribution is an important part of the process, so I want to make sure that people understand that what they may be giving up in terms of an online survey would still be protected when using an independent assessor in person. And then the gold standard would be to do what silver offers, but expand the range of input that you're getting in the process. So you're talking with people like your accountants, your attorneys, perhaps your recruitment firm, and others who have a view into your board's dynamics and also may have an informed perspective on what happens in other boardrooms to share. The independent assessor will bring that as well, but the more fulsome picture you can create, the richer the output from the process and the more that you can do to enhance your company.
So Angela, great points, and we have about 2 minutes left, and I want to get to what is the critical issue here. PwC's annual study showed that board members felt that about 35% of board members, between 35 and 40, felt annually that there are directors on the board that should be replaced. Okay, The board evaluation, if done correctly, will identify these people. The problem is that board leadership, or lack of board leadership, hasn't had the ability to rotate these people off, either by not renominating them or asking them to step down. That is the biggest problem that we have connected with this. How do we go about changing that? I mean, investors have been clear that they're not happy with that. Governance guru, everybody's saying that this is something that needs to be changed. How do we go about having that number go down? Because it hasn't so far.
Well, I think a couple of things. Assuming that you have a robust process in place and you're using an independent assessor, that part of that assessor's mandate can be to talk with the directors that you're trying to transition off the board. They can help them see why they are no longer a fit. They can help encourage them to do what's the best for the company, which may not be totally in alignment with what they personally want.
Right.
And that independent assessor also greases the skids for either the independent lead director or the chairman to finish that conversation, because that is the chair's responsibility.
It does take a little bit of the initial heat off and as you say, grease the skids. It's going to be important that companies recognize this on their own, and again, to me, it comes down to a topic that we discuss many times in the show, and that's board leadership.
Yes.
That ends up being somebody that really has to assume the responsibility to keep these processes happening like they're supposed to happen. So, any last piece of advice for boards that are about to try and improve their process?
It's a process. Be patient with yourselves, but go at it with as much energy that you can muster right now, because the value is for you, your board, your company, and the whole governance landscape.
Angela Brock-Kyle, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, TK. It's been my pleasure.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.